How Not to Die. I read this book by Michael Greger, MD. It was called How Not to Die. And it was a very good book. It actually went hand in hand with the book that I just previously read, Young Forever, because Young Forever talked about how to remain young forever. And this book was actually really just a continuation of that. I liked how this book was put down better. So this book actually starts with a story. He tells the story of his grandmother. She had had major heart surgeries, bypasses, procedures on her heart, and the doctors finally came to her and said, "We have reached the end. We can't come up with anything else to do. There's nothing else we can do. You need to go home, say your goodbyes, and enjoy your last month or two of living." But she wasn't accepting of what they had told her, so she actually started to research. And she found a doctor who was claiming that he could heal her. So this lady, who could barely walk more than 10 steps, found a way to get across the country, and she went to this clinic and checked herself in with this doctor. 3 weeks later, she was discharged from the clinic, completely healed. She was walking 10 miles a day. She never had another heart problem, and she lived for another 36 years. So what in the world did they do in those 3 weeks that all these other doctors couldn't do? And that was, they changed her diet. They just put her on a plant-based diet. Yeah, that's all they did. Put her on a plant-based diet. And this author actually talked about how he saw that and he realized that food is healing. And that is one of the reasons why he went into the medical field, because he wanted to heal people with food. So he talked about how when he was looking for a med school, he was trying to find one that had a very large intensive nutritional section, and he couldn't find them. Most schools maybe had a 3-hour course, if that, on nutrition. That's all the doctors were getting trained in. Now, he did say that there were a couple that had more. He found one that had 21 hours, which is less than 1% of his education. So our doctors are woefully lacking in the nutrition aspect of keeping us healthy. So the other thing that's affecting doctors is that here in America, we are a fee-based medical system. So the doctor gets paid when you come to visit. The doctor gets paid for every procedure, every surgery, everything they do to you. The doctor's getting paid, every prescription, everything. They're being rewarded for all of these procedures, all of these pills, all of these visits. They're not being rewarded for getting you healthy. In 1900, the 3 major causes of death were all infection related: tuberculosis, pneumonia, and diarrheal diseases. And somewhere, somehow, that has twisted. And those are not the major diseases anymore. The major diseases are things like digestive cancers, colorectal cancer, diabetes, blood pressure, suicide, heart disease. There's 15 of them, according to this book. And the author's main thing is what changed. And the major thing that changed was our diet. Back in the 1900s, people ate off of their land. They actually gardened, they farmed, they ate natural foods. They didn't have all these Hostess cupcakes and this and that and the other. They actually ate natural plant-based foods. They lived off of the land. And the author says that is the difference. Plant-based foods is the difference. There was a study of 42,000 people that had died at a very old age, and 0% of them died from old age. They all died from some kind of disease, one of these 15 diseases most likely. And that actually says that we're doing this to ourselves. Now, you can't avoid death. Sometimes there are accidents. He actually talked about a friend of his who lived very, very healthy, was exercising and eating plant-based and eating really good. And this friend went to the gym and he was in the shower and he collapsed and died. And everybody was really up in arms. They're like, how in the world did this happen? And a week later, they found out that they had just done a remodel and one of the vents was installed incorrectly. And so he was breathing carbon monoxide and he died of carbon monoxide poisoning. And, so the author does caution us to say, live your life like every day might be the last, because, we're going to try not to die, but sometimes it happens anyway. So the book is actually divided into two sections. The first section calls about the 15 diseases that are the major causes of death. And he actually breaks it down and talks about studies that show that certain foods, certain behaviors will actually help diminish the cause of those deaths. So there's a lot of research in there, but he does throw out things, like sleep. Sleep is really, really important for those mental disorders. Oranges for this, beets for that, and exercise, of course. And, and yes, of course, he did talk about the fact that if you don't want to be smoking because of lung cancer. So he breaks it down and he talks about the research behind it. And in that time, he's giving you hints of what you need to eat, what you need to do. So he talks about that, and the first section is more research-based. Then he goes in and he kind of recaps each of these 15 diseases. And what he does is he actually goes more into depth of what you should be eating and how much, because he said sometimes too much of a good thing is not as good. He actually used that example in sleep. He said they found that, too little sleep is bad, but too much sleep is bad. So you actually have to get the fine lines. So in that second section, he actually breaks down those diseases again, and you walk through them one at a time. And he actually gives you practical advice for what to do. He ends the book with a quote from a doctor, which I thought was profound. This doctor had said, "I'm not afraid to die, but I am afraid to be the cause of my own death." So I actually really, really liked this book. I thought this book was incredible. It was actually on the layperson's level. You didn't need a medical degree to understand what they were saying. You didn't need to be a scientist. It all made sense. So it was really good that way. It was laid out in a way that, for me, I am suffering from acid reflux. So for me, with that happening there and knowing that, the damage that the acid reflux causes is sometimes a precursor to esophageal cancer, I was able to go to those chapters and I was really able to focus on those. And I'll be able to flip back to those chapters and find quickly the diseases that I feel might most affect me. The digestive diseases because of the acid reflux. My dad died of colorectal cancer, so obviously that was an important one. Things like that. So I thought the book was really well laid out. Now, the book is very, very pro-plant-based. The author does say he's not promoting vegetarian or a vegan lifestyle, but he does really, really promote it. And everything he says about meat is always in a negative term. So that's the only downside, but that's his belief. So there you go. He did say that while he's not promoting it, he would highly recommend that you start to tailor it back. You don't have to have meat every day. You can start taking it back. And he said every little change is good. If you are a major meat eater, his words of advice were to say, let's go ahead, and you don't have to eat it every day. Maybe if you cut it out 1 time or 2 times a week, that will make a difference in your life. So, he wasn't really preaching it, but yes, he was. So this was a good book. I was really happy with it. I am 100% recommending this book to anyone that is looking for ways to try to help the diseases that they have. Acid reflux for me. My mom had a stroke, so the brain disorders are very important to me. My dad had colorectal cancer, so that's very important to me. So, this is a really good book that you can read to figure out what you can eat that may actually help you avoid something. He said genetics are only a small portion. He said that we are in control of our health destiny. So enjoy reading. So let me know what you think. I would love to hear your comments about this book. And in the meantime, no excuses. So in that section,